You know, it's really hard for me to remember a time when I didn't know who Billy the Kid was. I find myself genuinely wishing I could have known him. Again, not because of his historical relevance, but because who he was and what his personality was like. His infectious personality drew so many people in that he knew of. Even people that didn't like him were drawn to him. There's just something about this kid that 140 years after his death, he still draws you in. I think that's the reason why he's still so popular to this day and why his story is so hotly contested and fought by so many of us. Really, when you think about it, you just won't see this kind of dedication and infatuation in any other Western figure. Again, I just don't know any other character out there that pulls at people like this and has this sort of impact on people in their lives.
So it's December 23rd, 1880, and Pat and his 13-man posse have been trailing Billy, Dave Rudabaugh, Tom Pickett, Charlie Beaudry, and Billy Wilson through the snow to the rock house at Stinkin' Springs.
Garrett and posse crawled up the arroyo to within 30 feet of the door and laid down in the snow. The rock house was a stark stone rectangle about 30 feet long and 12 feet wide. There was only a rough opening and no door. Inside were 5 men and the kid's horse.
Garrett told the posse that if Billy goes outside to feed the horses, he's going to have a Mexican hat on and you can kill him. From there, Bowdry came out to feed the horses, and I think his posse, probably assuming it was Billy the Kid, opened fire and killed him.
When Charlie Beaudry came out to feed the horses, they all fired at him, thinking it was Billy.
Charlie is staggering towards Pat, and he's dying, and he's bleeding, and he's sputtering, saying, "I wish, I wish, I wish." And then he drops dead.
A little later, Garrett noticed the tie ropes of the horses beginning to move. He realized they were trying to get the horses inside so they could mount up and come out running. Garrett shot one of the horses dead, and when it fell, it partially barricaded the opening. Garrett shot the other ropes, and the horses fled away.
Ultimately, after a brief, or maybe not so brief, standoff in the cold, Garrett and his posse decided to start a fire and began cooking food, and I think most accounts have this attributing as to what drew the kid and his men out is just cold and hunger.
And then Pat starts taunting Billy and the others that are inside, and he's asking Billy how he's fixed in there, and he's telling him to come out and be sociable, and Billy says, "Can't do it, Pat. Business is too confining." And so the standoff goes on for hours.
Deputy Jim East said, "We held a medicine talk with the kid. Garrett asked him to give up. The kid replied, 'Go to hell, you long-legged son of a bitch.'" According to posseman Frank Clifford, the first thing Billy said when he came out was, "Pat, you old so-and-so, they told me there was 100 Texans here from the Canadian River. If I'd have known there was no more than this, you'd have never gotten me." The posse took their prisoners back to the Wilcox Brazil Ranch, but before they settled in for the night, Garrett sent a wagon back to pick up Charlie's body.
For me, Billy the Kid represents a fascinating intersection of myth and reality. It's where the lines get blurred between outlaw and folk hero.
My obsession is inspired by the mystery of this outlaw, the things that we still don't know, the things that we have yet to discover. I don't believe that we can label him as good or bad. I don't think he was a hero or a villain. I think he was a product of his environment.
Billy's story isn't just about him obtaining notoriety as a gunslinger or an outlaw, but the deeper and more human elements of his story, his youth, the charisma, and ultimately the tragedy of his short life all add to this compelling story that's Billy the Kid.
You just won't see this kind of dedication and infatuation in any other Western figure. I've had some really great friends that I've come into contact because of Billy the Kid, and I'm also sad to say that I've lost a few friends because of Billy the Kid.
That environment was violent and it was lawless. He was an orphan, and he had to figure out how to navigate and survive in this Wild West. He was an outlaw, but I don't know if that label is really appropriate, because I think he was more complex than that.
Billy the Kid is the tragic anti-hero. He's not your typical villain. He was a tragic figure who, by most accounts, was pushed into this life of crime by circumstances that were beyond his control.
He displayed an intense moral compass at times, a strong sense of loyalty. He was smart and he was witty, but he was dangerous, and there was a bit of madness there as well, I think. I don't believe that Billy wanted the life of an outlaw, but he could not manage to escape it.
I think there's this large sense of fatalism to his life. He's this young man that was caught in a cycle of violence in a lawless world, and he tried to navigate right and wrong, but the times probably pushed him to continually slip into this outlaw status. It's a blend of tragedy and rebellion. His youth and charisma is a big part of what attracts me to his story. It makes him unique. Being approximately 21 at the time of his death kind of brings about this striking image of a young man, probably barely out of adolescence, who had a reputation as a violent gunslinger, but also as this charismatic ladies' man that gave him this larger-than-life image. Each generation is able to reshape his narrative a little bit to reflect society and our own values, and I think this helps keep his legacy alive and relevant.
The dedication for this monument was no different than most of the others we've done. You spend months and months researching and preparing for this one event in hopes that everything just goes off smoothly.
The events of the day really started the day before, where Josh, Mike, Aaron, and I met at the site and actually installed the monument, which surprisingly went much better than we anticipated. I think we were fearful that we were going to lug this massively large and heavy stone hundreds of yards through rough terrain. Fortunately, just by stroke of dumb luck, we were able to get my truck up to the site, which I think was, for me personally, because it's my truck, I was a little fearful that the thing was going to roll into a ditch. But somehow, by an act of God, we managed to get the truck up there to the site, and through some southern ingenuity, we were able to lower that stone down and get it in place.
We were actually able to unload the stone and set it probably in less than an hour, but man, was it heavy.
It was an honor to be present at Stinkin' Springs for this event, for the ceremony, and for the unveiling of this monument. Not just because it's the first site marked by the Coalition, but because, in my opinion, this is the most important historic site in our Billy the Kid world. I mean, this is the place where the capture of Billy the Kid went down. And there were so many little events leading to this one huge moment in history.
I think was really pretty magical. It was I think the largest ceremony we've had as far as laying of a monument that the Coalition has done. We had some really fantastic historians that came out to see it, that spoke, gave their take on Billy the Kid and the events around Stinkin' Springs. We were able to kind of tell the story and give a lot of context as to what went down that day, because this was the first time a lot of people who attended actually got to experience and stand on that site for some ever. For a lot of others, they had not been back in years. So this was a good opportunity for them to revisit a very significant site. And I think it was very impactful for a lot of people.
First off, thanks for coming out, everybody. I really appreciate this. I know it's not an easy drive for everyone. Certainly not an easy haul to get here, so that means a lot that we can come out here. Basically, we've got kind of the core of the coalition right here. That means a lot to me. Some of our original members are part of this group. Y'all stuck with us through 4 years. First couple years a little rough, but we're doing great things, and that's why we invited some of y'all out here, because y'all been with us from the beginning. That means a lot to us. Before we get anything going, I want to take a quick second to recognize the person, honestly, that made this possible, that made all of this possible, that's probably did more of the work than I did unloading the stove. Anyways, I want to give Aaron a bigger hand of applause because he made this possible. Him and his family and their generous donation. You're awesome. I can't thank you guys enough. Twister, I know you probably got more cool things to do, but man, this is awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to your family for making this happen. I'm looking forward to a lot of good things we've got in the future with you guys. I'm so excited. Anyway, so you guys know Billy Kids Horse Historical Coalition. We came to be about 3.5 years ago. Over that 3.5 year time period, we've actually marked 4 graves, which I think is awesome. A lot of work went into each one of those, and all you guys made every one of those possible, so thank you. I'm excited to say that this is our first historical marker, though. This is the first site we've been able to mark, and this spot has a very special place to me, so this is probably the coolest thing for me that we've got to do yet. So this is the who's who of Billy the Kid have stood at this site, from the outlaws that we find interesting, that we research and why we're here, to the historians that have paved the way that allow us to do what we're doing now. So I'm very excited about that. But for the purpose of this conversation, and to keep this short, I want to just talk about one man real fast. That's my dear friend and mentor, Alan Barker. He passed away about 9 years ago. Back in 1987, he spent a good part of his life, because this site was actually lost for about 2 decades. He spent a good part of his life searching and locating this site again. It had been covered. He located it in 1987. There was actually a historical marker on the roadway for a time. Unfortunately, that no longer stands. So I wanted to this was just very special to me for that reason, because he took me under his wing 13 on up into the year he passed. So this has been very special to me for that reason. Yeah, all this is because of him, and again, it's because of you guys. So to my left, you'll see the fruits of Mr. Barker's hard work, research. 9 years after his death, 144 years after the historic incident that happened here occurred, placing us here now, we're finally able to give it the respect that it deserves. I always say this stuff is a generation away from being lost if we don't do something to save it. So thank you guys for all that. Aaron, will you help me out? Give me the honor, sir. All right, we tried to find a cute green girl, but this is all we got, guys. Okay? There you go.